Oh, there we go. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And if we could get the PowerPoint up, that first slide, that would be great. Take off the video and put up the PowerPoint. Hi, everyone. I'm Eve Stern, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Center for the Humanities at URI, where we occupy the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and the Niantic people. Every spring, the URI community gathers to celebrate the humanities, the stories, the ideas, and the words that help us understand our lives and our world. The humanities introduce us to people we've never met, places we've never visited, thank you, and ideas that may never have crossed our minds. Our Center for the Humanities is a hub for people who want to come together to learn more about the stories that humanists tell and think about how the humanities help us interpret the world we live in. Among our other activities, we organize an annual speaker series that brings scholars, artists, and thinkers to campus to focus on a particular theme. This year's theme is the Humanities and Popular Culture / Counterculture, and this afternoon we're thrilled to welcome Harvard professor Stephanie Burt to talk about a little-known artist by the name of Taylor Swift. We're very grateful to the College of Arts and Sciences and the Division of Research and Economic Development for sponsoring this event. One critical factor that makes the humanities so dynamic at URI is the professors who share their passion with their students. This spring, and I think I'm going to embarrass her, a legendary humanities professor is retiring, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize her. For the past 30 years, historian Joelle Rollo-Coster has inspired students with her passion for medieval history, her sense of humor, and her always lively and sometimes irreverent teaching style. Joelle is one of the world's leading experts on the history of the papacy. Over the course of her distinguished career, she's written books too numerous to name and won awards, including being elected to the Medieval Academy of America and being knighted by the French government. She's also an active public intellectual who regularly publishes pieces that show how medieval history helps us to understand the contemporary world. Joelle is an incredibly accomplished scholar, a dynamic teacher, a generous colleague, and a good friend, and we will truly miss her. Please join me in recognizing Joelle. And now on to today's program. We'll begin by recognizing the recipients of our annual Humanities Student Excellence Awards, followed by Professor Burt's talk and a Q&A session. I invite you to linger after the talk to enjoy some snacks and a book signing by our speaker. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Jason Dwyer, Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies in the College of Arts and Sciences, to present the student awards.
Thank you so much, Eve. Let me start by saying, Joelle, it has been a pleasure working with you and serving on committees with you and learning from you. I want to extend the interim dean, Brenton DeVos, regrets that he could not make it. He is currently at URI Day at the State House, where I think it's auspicious that we have the breadth and depth of expertise to be able to mount multiple celebrations of scholarship and achievement at the same time. And it is particularly my pleasure to be able to honor two students today on behalf of the Center for Humanities. I think it's also important to be able to recognize that our engagement with the State House recognizes the importance of public support of our scholarship and our impact on the public. And I want to also recognize the private support of the work for the Center for Humanities, which you can find listed on the back of your program. So this year, the Center for Humanities is very pleased to present awards to two outstanding students who have demonstrated an exceptional commitment to the humanities, both on and off campus. And I will say a little bit about each award winner, but I do encourage you to read more about them in the festival booklet that you can find at the back of the room. The Humanities Undergraduate Student Excellence Award goes to Claire McCullough, who will graduate this May with a BA in French. In addition to being a stellar student and a trained opera singer, Claire is a 2025 College of Arts and Sciences Fellow who spent last summer interviewing some of the last speakers of Mississippi Gulf Coast French. And I had the pleasure of talking with her and learning more about her research at a research symposium that we had in September, and I'm very pleased to be able to present this award to her today. She's compiling those interviews into an oral history project that she hopes to make available as a resource for researchers. Claire is described by one professor as possessing an intellectual curiosity that clearly sets her apart. She plans to pursue her MA in French after graduating, and I would like to invite Claire and Professor Lars Eriksson, Chair of the Department of Modern and Classical Languages and Literature, to please come up for a photo. And I think it's also really important to take a moment here to recognize that we are, of course, here to learn about cutting-edge scholarship, and these awards are going to students who are going to be the next generation of cutting-edge research as we move forward with the humanities. This next award goes for Graduate Student Excellence. The Humanities Graduate Student Excellence Award goes to Molly McDonough, who received her BA at URI in December and is now pursuing her MA on the Archaeology and Anthropology track within the Department of History. This is a big semester for her, as she is also receiving the University Excellence Award in both History and Anthropology for her undergraduate work. Molly has wide-ranging research interests and has demonstrated a commitment to the humanities outside the classroom by participating in numerous archaeological field schools and working with the university archives. I have not yet had the opportunity to talk about her research with her, but the description of her mentors by her mentors in the nomination package leapt off the page. Her mentors describe her as representing the finest qualities we seek to cultivate in humanities students, and this includes an approach characterized by intellectual rigor, interdisciplinary sophistication, and authentic passion for understanding the human past. I'd like to invite Molly and her faculty mentors, Professor Joelle Rollercoaster. Joelle, we're finally going to get you up here, and Professor Kathy DeCesare to please come up for a photo. And I would now like to invite English professor Marta Elena Rojas to come up and introduce our speaker, please.
Hi.
Hi, it's so cool to be here.
Congratulations, Molly and Claire. I couldn't be prouder of you both. Claire, it's also lovely to hear about your work in a completely different register. Okay, Stephanie Burt. My remarks today could be a version of the talk's title, The Genius of Stephanie Burt, a crash course on the academic superstar. A professor at Harvard, she is a scholar, poet, teacher, and in each of these facets, she excels, sets a standard, and is a star. At last count, she has published 9 books, including 2 critical books on poetry and 3 poetry collections. Her essay collection, Close Calls with Nonsense, was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. Her other works include the gorgeous book of poetry, We Are Mermaids, my personal favorite, Advice from the Lights, The Poem Is You,
60 Contemporary American Poems and How to Read Them, The Art of the Sonnet, Something Understood, Essays and Poetry for Helen Vendler, The Forms of Youth, Adolescence in 20th Century Poetry, Parallel Play, Poems, Randall Jarrell on W.H. Auden. I think those are 2 books, I'm sorry. And Randall Jarrell and His Age. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times Book Review, the London Review of Books, the Times Literary Supplement, The Believer, and the Boston Review. You can tell from her titles and the places where she chooses to publish that she not only delights in poetry, but wants to show us how to delight in poetry too. Let's consider the Swiftian coin. One side, relatable, the other side, aspirational. If we were to flip this coin, we would land on one side or the other. As Professor Burt teaches us, this coin, like Swift, is always both. Aspirational, relatable. So is Stephanie Burt. We were undergraduates together, which might explain the back and forth. At college, I'll just say, we all thought she was brilliant. In our sophomore year, sometimes I would notice her, perched on an edge, a window seat, an alcove, a corner table, observing from one of our common areas, a library, the dining hall, one of our common rooms. And maybe she was simply thinking or dreaming. But to me, she seemed to be taking all in analytically, reading each of us and all of us with clarity and intellect, an enviable insight. Sometimes I might catch her in the same pose, and she would seem to be like any one of us, on the margins, figuring out how to navigate, how to be, and how to become in the midst of more senior students. A group which in our house, artists, poets, actors, musicians, performers of all kinds who seemed impossibly glamorous, self-possessed, and some with the kind of queer fabulousness I still admire and aspire to. When we were more senior, you remember, she was just as often the gravitational center. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Listening or being listened to. Yeah, that's true. And holding a kind of quiet court. Yes, you. That is not to say that she is unchanged. Like her subject, Stephanie Burt embodies transformation and metamorphosis, sharing the same kind of work ethic as she perfects her craft. Critical, poetic, always lyrical, and makes this effort seem achievable. Relatable, aspirational. She is a superstar. I give you Stephanie Burt. Are you ready for it?
I absolutely cannot measure up to that. I cannot. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, wow. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm just going to take a moment so the tears don't get in the way of the introduction. That was amazing. I also need to make sure this works in case I need to hear it later. Okay. Is that right? Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Hi. So, what makes Taylor Swift so popular? How did she get where she is, a place in modern celebrity culture and in the circulation of modern pop music, where very few other singers or songwriters or performers have ever gone? Well, first, a nod to the historians here, including medieval historians. Thank you. And also just thank you for being here and Thank you to everyone at URI, even and Martin and everybody else who made this happen. I hope I'm giving back. So I'm trying to read your shirt. What band are you advertising? Yeah, it says feminism. I love it. We need to talk about the band Hailstorm at some point. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So that aside, so as historians know, monocausal explanations suck. No big event has one cause, right? Not the First World War or the Industrial Revolution or the New Deal, nothing. Anything big has multiple causes, multiple ideas multiple people had, along with multiple enabling circumstances and sometimes coincidences. And that's true for Taylor as well. When I'm going to give you one argument about what makes her special, I don't mean nothing else played a role. For example, as the Swifties here know, Taylor was born in, when was she born? Right. To a well-off white family, Scott and Andrea, who had some skill in financial management and some heritage in the performing arts. Her grandmother, Marjorie Finley, was a professional opera singer and a TV host in Puerto Rico. And many of you know the song, remember her. By middle school, when Taylor learned to play the guitar and began, apparently on the same day she picked up a guitar to write songs, she had become an awkward but conventionally attractive teen who wanted more friends than she had. And once those ambitions became clear, Scott and Andrea moved the whole family to Hendersonville, Tennessee, near Nashville, so Taylor could chase that dream. And there she got a lot of songwriting lessons with Liz Rose, the co-author on several of her early hits. And without Scott and Andrea, probably without Liz Rose, without Taylor's whiteness and photogenic countenance, and without her willingness to work and learn and study and take direction and collaborate, both in the studio and as a performer, she could not have found the same kind of success the same way. With those things, though, the success from the beginning came from whatever exceptional qualities listeners began to find in the songs. She made music industry headlines, some of you know, as the youngest songwriter, not performer, songwriter, signed to Sony in Nashville. It can get complicated on every level. She told Patty Boyd, yes, George Harrison's Patty Boyd, in 2018, but the songwriting, this is Taylor, is still the same uncomplicated process it was when I was writing songs in my room. Of course, she collaborates in the studio and with creators like Aaron Dessner, who sent her rhythm tracks and sonic beds. She has always portrayed herself primarily as a songwriter, says Kella Pisana of The New Yorker. In fact, Swift is both a brilliant songwriter and a brilliant collaborator. One who seems, this is important, to prefer collaboration to solitude, which is unsurprising for someone who's shown so much need for approval and so much self-doubt. Adults in the industry who doubted her writing abilities saw her process and came away impressed. And she wrote all of, what album did she write with no co-authors? Speak Now, right. She did that, although of course she had producers, to show that she wrote her own songs. And by that point in the work, listeners could find threads and patterns distinguishing her work both musically and lyrically. Among them, the now famous in certain circles T-drop, first described by the musicologist and podcaster Nate Sloan. And a T-drop happens dramatically near the end of a part of a song, often a chorus. It's a half step up to the fourth of a major scale, and then a half step back down, and then a fifth down. I'll play it for you. And you can think about multiple parts. Everything you lose is a step you take, right? Or you belong with me, and you don't want to hear me sing, right? Right? Okay, you get the idea, right? That's that. That's the T drop. I'm so sorry. So we can find lyrical verbal motifs too. Aspects of wordsmithery that really stand out across the songwriting. For example, she really likes to let you know how old she is, and to use numbers and ages. When you're 15 and somebody tells you they love you, you're going to believe it. That kind of radiance you only have at 17, and so on. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling... Yeah, okay. I would have stayed on my knees at... Anyone? No? Some midnights. Yeah, say it again. 19, right. And notice, if you spend a lot of time with Taylor, you just learn a lot about songwriting if you aren't already a songwriter. 19 rhymes with my knees, because in songwriting, it's the vowels that matter. So maybe Taylor pays so much attention to numbers and ages as a lyricist because she started so young. Maybe her autobiographical style and her listeners' interest in her life reminds her to tell us how old she is, the way that novelists give us the ages of characters, especially teenagers. Again, monocausal explanations for anything fall short. So now that I've got your attention on these songs, I can ask you, or ask in front of you, what makes them so good? Or if good is the wrong term, most of my favorite songwriters never got 10th as popular. Why do so many of us like the songs so much? Well, why do we see ourselves in her songs and queue up for more of them, and some of us see ourselves as Swifties and organize a little bit of our lives around what she does? What's special, not just about one song, but about the body of work that's brought her up here? Well, again, no one answer will do, but here's something she's been doing consistently across all the kinds of songs she writes. Country pop, indie folk, electro, quill pen, glitter gel pen, character songs, autobio songs. She has remained both aspirational, Marty kind of scooped me on this, and relatable. It is common to say that certain pop singers, especially young ones with she, her, and they, them pronouns, succeed by sounding relatable. Fans see ourselves in them. Our struggles, our fears. Avril Lavigne, on her first album, set out to be the voice of a generation, and it worked. So did Paul Westerberg for a lot of Gen X. So did Billie Eilish, not that older people necessarily got it. So did Carole King. Are there Carole King fans here besides me? Yeah, great, yeah, right. Taylor once called Carole King the greatest songwriter of all time. Her songs, this is Taylor on Carole King, speak to the true and honest feelings that everyone has felt. They come to you from somewhere else, and suddenly they are partly ours, like a close friend intimately sharing the truths of her life. That quality makes the songs relatable, which is a word that doesn't get remotely popular until this century, but it's a goal and a concept that goes back centuries. This is Samuel Johnson on Thomas Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard. Anyone know that one? Yeah. Remember where that's from? Nobody? Close? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Basketball season. Yeah. So Johnson wrote that the poem that made Thomas Gray famous, Elegy in a Country Churchyard, quote, abounds with images that find a mirror in every mind and with sentiments to which every bosom returns an echo. And Johnson continued that the common sense of readers uncorrupted with literary prejudices and the dogmatism of learning would eventually resolve in Gray's favor all claim to poetical honors. And I wouldn't say that poem or any song speaks to everyone or call any sentiment universal, but we can call some of these sentiments common, widespread, or generational. We can describe the feeling that someone my age is writing down my life, which is Helen Vendler on the early Audrey and Rich. If you're a fan of either of those writers, I'm a fan of both. And that's how a lot of us have felt. It's the secret to You Belong With Me It's the secret to the song 15. It's the secret to who Swift is when she becomes a national superstar. And part of the brilliance of a lot of those songs lies in how they stay singable by non-professionals. You can sing along. You Belong With Me, which she co-writes again with Liz Rose. I'm not going to deal with the soundtrack till later. We're just going to use the melodica, right? That's got one of the simplest, most common chord progressions in pop music. 1, 5, 2, 4, with a dissonant seventh on the fourth. Should I? Should I? Okay. I think I have to. Okay. Okay. Right? You've heard that a million times. You've heard the chords before, but you haven't heard the melody. And once you've heard the melody, you can sing it. You can belt the chorus, which depends on these up and down whole steps until you get to that T drop, right? It's kind of sing-song, right? You Belong With Me? It's got some thirds in there. It goes up and down. It's easy to sing along. Taylor would stand out if she couldn't do anything else, making those songs obviously relatable, especially early on. And that starts early, and it goes far. The country era Taylor took resources specific to country songwriting, the emphasis on storytelling, the passage of time between verses, the emphasis on verbal salience without verbal complication, and she adapted them to teenage lives that hadn't really shown up in country music in the same way before. The last teen girl country star before Taylor, LeAnn Rimes, did not write her own material. She stood out for her voice. But Taylor, as a songwriter, could do something else, something just as often and just as important. The people and the words and the music became not only relatable, but aspirational. Not only could we already be like the people she sang about, we could also look up to those people, seeing them as better or more exciting versions of ourselves. And there's Johnson on Gray. And there is part of the video for our song, where she's really doing this for the first time. Great pop songwriters have been aspirational too, describing feelings so intense or powers so impressive that we don't feel like them as much as wish we were like them or imagine we could be, right? The David Bowie who wrote Life on Mars, do we know that one? Okay. The David Bowie who wrote Life on Mars is achingly relatable. The David Bowie who became Ziggy Stardust became aspirational. And there are great songwriters and performers who are aspirational all the time. Prince comes to mind. Beyonce comes to mind. These effects emanate again not just from performers' charisma, but from the words in their songs and from their music. You can make I Would Die For You your karaoke standard if you like, but you're not going to measure up. So Taylor's earliest songwriting establishes her and her characters as aspirational too. Her first hit, Tim McGraw, idealizes the breakup that it frames and invites its character into a kind of pantheon of country music alongside Tim. If you like Tim McGraw's music, wouldn't you want to have the Extra Still Sweet On associate you with him? Teardrops on My Guitar invites us into Taylor's crush on Drew, who's dating a higher status girl, which is relatable. But the song also reminds us that Taylor has the guitar. She can make her troubles into song. I'm sorry, that's the Teardrops on My Guitar video, not the Our Song video. Many apologies to the debut stans here. She's aspirational there because she can make her troubles into art, and we can join her. And the great zine writer and critic Tavi Gevinson has very recently written about the meta aspect of Swift's artistry. By pointing to her own authorship, letting us in on it, she fosters a greater intimacy with her listener than with the male subject of her love songs. That's Tavi Gevinson, and she's right. Who needs advice when you're 15 about not dating the boy on the football team, right? Who needs advice about what to do when senior guys think you're cute and say, I haven't seen you around before? Taylor and her best friend, Amanda Anderson, I believe they're still close, in Hendersonville, had real problems, as the song suggests, but a lot of us had it worse. The middle school Taylor we meet in The Best Day had a terrible time with her mean ex-girlfriends, but she also came home to the very best mom that she can imagine. And many of us did not have that kind of mom and never will. Hi, Mom. No, my mom's great, right? But like a lot of my friends' moms, not so much. And again, because Swift excels as a songwriter, not a novelist or a page-based, print-based poet, to see how the song really works, you have to hear the music. Have we got music queued up? We don't. That's okay. The song The Best Day, which I hope some of you know, starts out not just like a folk song, but like children's music. A simplified version of that song without the pre-chorus really would fit a school sing-along. The version that Taylor records lets us join her in that restricted melodic range. And then it reaches out and up and down. I'm not going to play it for you, don't worry. Until we get the mother's strong support in the chorus melody's resolution from the seventh to the root. Right? Had the best day today. Right? With you. Yeah. And it really gives you the sense of being lifted up, being held strongly. So when I go places and skeptics ask me about Taylor, they often want to focus on her celebrity status, the way that she understands her own image. Well, fair enough. But Swift gets famous with Fearless before her dating life made national news. Her success as a songwriter is what made her dating life into national news. Once she's joined that celebrity circuit, though, her songs invite listeners into it. Our imagined identification with that jet-set life helps make the songs of 1989 in particular aspirational as well as relatable. This is Gevinson again. Another songwriter could tell you what it's like to be picked up by a guy in a fast car, but only Taylor Swift could tell you what it's like to be picked up by Harry Styles in a fast car. Or at least only Taylor Swift could let you believe you know what it's like. Now, she's still pretty young there, right? Nobody stays in high school forever. Nobody with Taylor's level of success can remain so much like her fans indefinitely. Some of us got to spend our 22nd year at the club with no money troubles and plenty of friends. Many of us did not. The music for 22 invites us into that world. But it's over-insistence, right? How does that chorus begin? I'm going to have to ask you to sing along or tell me since we don't have... Right. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22, right? That's kind of a bitter note there to emphasize everything else that's exciting and sweet. Who needs to be told that they're 22 when they're 22, right? There's some doubt in there, right? Hey, I feel like I'm 22. No, really. I'm not still 15. I'm not, 50. I am, sorry. Right. So as you see her moving into other styles and other topics, you can see her remaining both aspirational and relatable, building that self-doubt into the characters that she's creating, many of which look like her, and some of whom are dealing with fame. How does she stay relatable? Well, one way is by staying in flight from who she used to be, or provisionally, self-consciously returning to it. The Taylor who makes Red and everything since then stops seeing herself as a teenager, but she never stops growing up if growing up means reevaluating your previous selves. We're not like her. Very few of us dated Harry Styles. Anyone? But like her, we know that we have changed. When she's writing We Never Go Out of Style, she has to insist on her perennial appeal. And she's preparing herself on the same album to admit that everyone can go out of style. That life is just a classroom. That each day our castles fall and we go out dancing to try to build them again. The song New Romantics does not label Taylor's social group as the Last Romantics, but it comes very close to declaring with William Butler Yeats that all things fall and are built again, and those that build them again are, as Yeats put it, gay. And we can talk about gay stuff later. We're gonna save that for the Q&A. So she specializes for years in depicting made-up versions of herself. But then she claimed during the pandemic to have stopped. She made up the people on folklore, inventing them at a time when real life seemed horribly canceled and unavailable. And I might be pushing an open door at this point, but I want to emphasize how her strongest songs have stayed both aspirational and relatable. We see ourselves in those characters, but we also want to be them. Poor James in, what's the song with James in it? Betty, yeah. Yeah, poor James in that song. He's only 17, he doesn't know anything, but he definitely had an exciting summer. He also gets that hopeful modulation, that so-called trucker shift, where it goes a whole step up, right? No, I'll spare you. Right, but you know how the song changes key at the end? That is a cliche among songwriters. They call it the trucker gear shift. And Taylor knows how to use it. He's getting that hope. And Augustine, at least, even if she's losing James, got that very exciting summer living for the hope of it all. Again, many of us have had far worse summers, especially in 2020. So, no two of Taylor's albums sound alike, not even Fearless and Speak Now. That's part of her secret, except it's not a secret. Like David Bowie, she won't stay put for more than one album, but her personae, unlike his, insist on their genuineness, their lack of pretense, their way of being versions of her, and therefore potential reflections as in a mirror ball of you. I'm tempted, this is I think the second to last prestigious poet I'm going to quote for you. Randall Jarrell said about the great poet W.H. Auden that you never step into the same Auden twice. And when he was disappointed by Auden's most recent books, as some of us have been disappointed by Life of a Showgirl, I'll get there soon, Jarrell said that at least the artist had changed and become something new, where so many other successful mid-career artists go on and on like a repeating decimal or a zombie until somebody drives a stake through their heart. So Taylor describes her sleepless nights on a whole album. What album? Yeah. She's not a zombie. She is a compilation of the characters she's tried and failed to be. And most of the songs on Midnights, which I don't think it's her best album, but I'm kind of a Midnights girl. Most of those songs assume her global success. They start from her fame, and then they bring us closer to her by showing what's wrong. The empty sonic space in that album's electro production, closer to Lord or to Yaz or Yazoo than to the rich synth pop of 1989 or to the R&B of Reputation. That openness of that electro stands for her own opening up. Her depression works the graveyard shift. Her wish to be loved, she's afraid, reflects a covert narcissism disguised as altruism. She knows, she feels like she's the problem, and she wants to console us as Swifties for the efforts we've made at defending her. It must be exhausting to root for her to be a Swiftie, but it's even more exhausting to be her. And by the time you get to a song like Antihero, the aspirational and the relatable are twined so closely together that nobody can tell them apart. And you could say the same thing about your own kid with that teardrop. The perfect kiss will never save you, which gets to the last thing I want to say about her earlier albums, and this keeps coming up, and it came up recently when I did a college talk in the Central Time Zone, and I learned, this is like one of the best compliments I've ever given, and it really should go to Taylor, that having a conversation with the class about Taylor helped one of the students in the class to leave her abusive boyfriend. And, Taylor knows she's doing that, right? She is as far as we know, a straight girl who is really into guys often, sometimes the wrong guys, and writes about those feelings. But she's also constantly, this is in really all of her great love songs, constantly telling you that no matter how much you're into a guy, no matter how much the guy is into you, do not give up the rest of your life for him. Do not become his possession. Do not reorient yourself around him, right? That's why You Belong With Me is such a great song, and it's why it's the most important preposition in pop music. You don't belong to me, you belong with me. And when she goes back on Reputation to I Want to Wear His Name on a Chain Around My Neck, it's not because he owns me, it's because he really knows me. So she's really giving good advice as well. Even now, I think. And there's a lot more to say about the way that those songs give advice. There's more to say about her sense of artifice, of effort, of how she's a try-hard who's never been a natural. She's tried so hard, she's succeeded so much that she's in a position where she can't trust any positive feedback. That's why she's the anti-hero, the giant too big for everyone, if you know that video. And showing those kinds of self-doubts, right? If everyone says I'm awesome because I'm so successful, how can I trust them? The bigger you get, the fewer remedies you have for your own self-doubt, especially if you're a try-hard, a collaborator, a social person, someone who really cares about other people's opinions. And exploring those self-doubts is one of the ways that she puts herself closer to us. And I'm going to end with her last two albums, which I think I have time for. Yeah? Are we good on time? Marty? Yeah. So, I think Tortured Poets Department, when I'm asked not what is your era, but what's your best album, I think that's the answer. It's certainly her most verbally ambitious and her most verbally diverse. The people who complained when it came out that didn't break new musical ground apparently hadn't listened to the song Clara Bow or to So High School, which did, or even to I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, but they were also missing the point because when you're experimenting with one variable, it helps to hold others constant. It's really a new height in her powers as a wordsmith because it's got so many takes on her career and her troubles and her joys. And I Can Do It With a Broken Heart stands out there. It's a good way into the album, not just because it's got all that high energy disco, but not just because it tells us it's going to energize us the way something like New Romantics or Style does, not just because it says it's going to take us dancing, but because it tells us how hard she's working. And anyone here ever tried doing that song in karaoke? No? Okay, I have. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's got the breath points at very weird places. It's a workout. And even if you aren't trying to emulate the vocal melodies, which, good luck with that, it's really telling you both aspirationally how it feels to be up there on stage doing this and how hard it is. Even when she's so depressed, she might regret having been born and has flashbacks to, what's Taylor's worst birthday? Yeah, her 21st birthday, yes. Right? And we haven't been the center of the Eras tour, most of us, but a lot of us have had to perform, to work, to stand up and pretend that nothing's wrong when everything feels wrong. And it's a song about masking, about exhausting yourself because the show must go on. Whether that is because you have to put food on the table because otherwise your 10-year-old isn't going to eat anything, or because you have to do this. I'm having a great time, by the way, right? But if I weren't, would you know? And then the song invites us to go back and listen aspirationally again. If only we, when our hearts were breaking, could perform as well as she can. And we might want to imagine ourselves as resilient as she is, but we're not going to come for her job. And I do want to talk about Life of a Showgirl, but if anyone wants to, I assume some people here saw the Eras tour, and a lot of you did not. It cost an arm and a leg. And I didn't see it in Foxborough. I didn't see it in New England because at the time I wasn't writing this book, and no one else in my household is a Swiftie, and I was like, I can't justify that. And I got to see it later when it was a work expense, and I'm very glad I did. But one of the things that you saw the Eras tour, if you've seen the movie, one of the things that really stands out, not just about the costumes and the stage design and the sets, which are amazing, and Taylor works on all that stuff herself with professionals. She's a great collaborator. But she does have a hand in all of that. One of the things that really stands out, if you listen to the album version of I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, that last spoken bit is kind of an afterthought, right? The song doesn't have a bridge. It just has verse, chorus, and then we get kind of the chorus repeating and the kind of like boppy high energy part that kind of fades out. And then she kind of mumbles, try and come for my job. But if you watch her perform it, and you can do this for the price of your Netflix subscription, I guess. You don't have to have seen the Eras tour. She gets to the edge of the stage, and she talks to whoever's there, and she hits it. She doesn't say, try and come for my job. She says, try and come for my job. And then the band stops. She's showing you not just that she can do it, but that she's never been a natural. She had to work. And that's part of what makes her, for me, still relatable. We got a little bit of time for Life of a Showgirl. Should we take it? Eve? Yeah. So, the best parts of that album, for me, are the ones that tell us that she won't stop doing her job. It's got stories about romantic commitment. It's got stories about regret. But its strongest songs are held together not that way, but because there's stories about looking back and making art about what you did before. The Fate of Ophelia is telling us that Taylor might have ended like a lot of other arty privileged girls who fall for tortured men who write poetry. Not literally drowned, but submerged in self-involved sorrow. She lived in fantasy, like the fantasy out love story. Now, is this? I think I pulled this out of its socket. I'm so sorry. I don't know. I'm pretty loud. I can do it. Right? All her songs about Travis let her rewrite earlier stories about how she thought no one would accept her as she is. In Eldest Daughter, she's promising her lover, thank you, that the childhood joy she feels again with him this time won't fade. All the best parts of the album, I think, look back in some way, and that's why they don't sound like one another. That eclecticism implies that no single style could fit all of the parts of her career that she's already had. And that's why the album ends with a song that has absolutely nothing to do with her being engaged, or her guy, or her favorite body parts on that guy. It is about how she is not going to give other things up for him. It's about how she's still living the life of a showgirl. The goofily named showgirl Kitty in that song, apparently named for Taylor's mother's Great Dane, encounters a would-be protege and warns her you'll never know the life of a showgirl, partly because the newcomer is from privilege, like Taylor. But Kitty underestimated, as many people used to do, her protege, just as we might underestimate the verbal play that the song invites, since the verbal play only starts at the bridge when the song becomes about the new girl, not about Kitty. Do you want to take a skate on the ice inside my veins? She was born for this life, and now she's managed to live it and to share it with us. Let's stop there. I think we ended right on time, right? Okay. And I believe we're supposed to Q&A.
Yeah, so
Here.
I'm going to come up. Well, it's more important for you to have the microphone. Is this working? Thank you. I'm going to come around with a microphone. So raise your hand if you have a question, and I will come over to you. So that way everyone can hear it on the live stream as well as in the room. Okay.
I was just wondering, what show were you able to actually go to for the Eras tour?
Edinburgh Night 3. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
I was able to see that
Thank you so much for your talk. I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about her politics.
Yeah.
As part of her, obviously it makes it easier when you don't talk about politics, or you only ever do when it seems to be very self-concerned. Then we're like right now. I don't know. This is coming from a personal experience. I remember I'm an Iranian when the Women Life Freedom happened. We had this insane surge of celebrities talking about women rights in Iran.
Yeah.
And I remember everyone being just so furious that she had not said anything. And I kind of feel like this is a trend with her. I love her, but I don't think she is completely open about her politics. And I wonder if that is something that contributes to being relatable.
I think she thinks it does. And there's some stuff about this in the book. So, thank you for bringing that up. She came up through country music, right? And she came up at a time when she's a minor and she trusts her parents very much. And her parents, especially her dad, there's some of this if you've seen Miss Americana, the movie, where her dad really doesn't want to screw up her career the way at the time people thought the Dixie Chicks, now just the Chicks, had, right? So she grows up being told, do not express your views on matters of public policy ever, or you will destroy your career. And then in the late 20-teens, when the orange guy gets in it for the first time, she decides, well, I have to say something. I have to do something. And she does. She does a good deal of work on behalf of the Democratic candidate for Senate in Tennessee, which had elected Democrats before, but he kind of got clobbered because that's where that state was at that time. She does some work for her congressperson in Nashville who was in a safe district and was fine, but doesn't have a lot of power. And works for the Biden campaign, endorses him, and he wins, and then makes clear that she's voting for Harris in 2024, and as you know, she doesn't win. And I think she feels burned and exhausted and distracted, and she is also surrounded at this point in her life by NFL players whose politics vary. And her fiance, you know the saying, I have to work with these people? Her fiance has to work with these people. That is not an excuse. I wish that she would say things the way that she did a few eras ago. I wish that she would say to the current federal government, stop using my music to promote the Gestapo. I wish she would say we shouldn't have a Gestapo. Stop kidnapping children. It's pretty basic. I wish she would say those things. Given the arc of her life and given what she's thinking about right now, and given, honestly, the political science, and there's data on this, about how little celebrity endorsements matter in issues that are already high salient national attention issues, where people get mobilized against celebrities as much as they're mobilized for them. I find it understandable why she's not doing press conferences to say, you know, Gestapo bad, immigrants good, voting rights good. It would be nice if she did that. I would love it. I do think that she has figured out that when her songs engage matters of public policy, they're only good when they are matters of public policy that affect her. The man is terrific. Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince is monumentally good because they integrate her concern for public policy matters with her life. You Need to Calm Down hasn't held up that well. So I don't really want her to write a song that says, stop detaining people in concentration camps. I don't know that she's the person to write songs about concentration camps in Texas. But I would like to see her get in front of a microphone and just say we shouldn't have them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess this relatability is not. It's biased. It
It's
does
biased.
have some bias to it.
In that it's biased towards sort of the most common demographic of her fans, which is white people. And I mean, at this point, there's data on this. The overwhelming majority of self-identified Swifties voted for Harris. And we know this because we know that there's a massive gender divide in the 2024 electorate that didn't really exist in previous generations, that didn't exist when George W. Bush was running. I think when she's like 16, she's like, I don't want to alienate my fans. But at this point, I think she's burned out and distracted and surrounded by football players. Yeah, and it sucks. If she were the best person she could possibly be and the best version of herself, she would say, let's not have concentration camps and stop using my music, you fascists. But I don't think she would write songs about it. Yeah. Is that a good answer? Thanks. More questions? Hi.
Hi. Just first off, thank you. But I
Thank you.
want to kind of get into her transition more into the adult kind of part of her life, because obviously she's 36 years old now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think personally I prefer all of her older first albums. Red
Valid.
is one of my favorites. And so Life of a Showgirl, when it first came out, I know me and my friends, we were like, this doesn't really sound like any showgirl kind of music. Obviously, she's very pop. Pop is her entire thing, but I was expecting more showgirl stuff. But all of the songs also are more talking about, adult topics, I will say. At least, Redwood Tree. But, but obviously, she's trying to show her audience, hey, as you said, I'm not this 16-year-old girl anymore. I'm trying to grow up. But personally, I'm just this album specifically, I don't know if she knows how to talk about it that way, if that makes sense.
It does, and I love the question, and your debut is great. I think I see Life of a Showgirl a little differently from you, because I think she's constantly looking back on the people she used to be and trying to figure out what they did wrong, what they did right, how she can get back there, and whether she wants to. I'm not going to defend the musical part of Wood, and actually would defend the lyrics, but that's a separate question, I think. But Ruin the Friendship, which is a sequel to Forever Winter, and also which a look back on who she was when she was writing Fearless. Ruin the Friendship, which is certainly the best song on that album, is absolutely about her connecting to her teenage self. I think Eldest Daughter is about how she hasn't felt since she was 8 or 9. And it would be great to be able to feel that way again. And she knows she's finally living her adult life right because there's someone who makes her feel that way again with the Ferris wheel and the carnival. I think she absolutely retains that connection to the previous selves that she had. And that's the strongest thing for me that holds the new album together. And it's an album that is, I mean, it's not her strongest album, like no one thinks it is. But it's an album that is sonically much more varied than people give it credit for. There's bubbly chart pop, there's acoustic stuff, there's a song that she wrote so she could sing it with Sabrina Carpenter, which does have sort of showgirl aspects. She's not pretending to be in the Ziegfeld Follies with like a full orchestra and like a kick line. Like, I don't know that I want her to do that. But that is a showgirl thing. So I think she actually is retaining that connection to the people she used to be. At least she is for me.
So it's more like she's looking back and showing her growth rather than staying on the old.
I think she is showing her growth. And that growth has a cost. Yeah. Right. And it's a pun because it's both the biography of a showgirl with chapters how it got to that point and what is it like to live this life I'm living now. Which, and she says this whenever she's interviewed. One of the things I didn't realize until I'd watched lots of footage of her, whenever she, almost whenever, 1989 tour wasn't like this for a number of reasons, but most of her tours, she likes being on tour so much that these things get extended. She's clearly more in her element when she's on stage and when she's in her professional life and when she's writing songs than when she's trying to figure out what to do for a night out or whether some guy's going to text her back. And that is the life of a showgirl that she's chosen to live, and she's going to keep living it, whatever happens, with somebody's wood. I hope I'm helping you like the album a little better.
So we have time for one more question.
Hi.
Can we take 2 if I talk fast? Okay, hi.
Hi. I just was wondering, so funny enough, I mean, I don't really listen to Taylor Swift. She does. But
Okay.
I am very interested in, I really love studying fan culture and fandom culture.
Me too.
I'm very, very big in it. I'm also a huge K-pop fan, so I know that fan
Valid.
culture is very, very huge.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm very passionate about studying.
Me
And
too.
I wanted to know what your opinions are and your favorite pieces of fandom culture within a Taylor Swift fandom, because I know for example, I know the friendship bracelets are a huge thing, and that kind of ended up bleeding into other fandoms. I know other concerts that I've been to, not even in the K-pop world, but I love a lot of alternative music, and I love 21 Pilots, and the trading has become a really huge thing. And I'm really interested to hear your opinions on fandom culture, especially since she kind of trailblazed a really big part of that.
Yeah, that's a very large topic, and I wish I could say more about K-pop. I don't speak Korean. Those guys are great. I really like Stray Kids, but that's not one of my fandoms. Fandom culture, and the culture in particular of transformative fandom, where people make things based on their favorite artists that the artist would never have made. And fandom as a social collectivity where you just meet people through it, is a good deal older than Taylor. Depending on who you talk to, it could go back to original series Star Trek, or to Sherlock Holmes, or, the dead the dead become big after Star Trek. But yeah, the dead are important. The dead are very important to the development of fan culture around music and transformative works and a sort of non-money economy. Arguably, fan culture goes back to Virgil's Aeneid. Any Aeneid fans here besides me? Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Great. Okay. So Taylor's contribution for me is that because she is so widely relatable and so normal, even though she's not, she has brought the joys of engagement with fan culture and its social aspects and the way you discover that you have a ton in common with, you live in Pawtucket and you meet someone online because you're both debut stands and she lives in Albuquerque and then you're writing every day, right? Fan culture does that. It creates communities that don't depend on your zip code or your day job or your family. And Taylor has done that at scale and for people who were not in fan culture before. I'm pretty engaged in X-Men fandom. And that is not the smallest, but not the largest comic book fandom. Do not talk to me about the movies. They're all bad except for Logan. But when you meet X-Men people online or at events, they're often people who are in other fandoms. They're often people who already felt alienated and knew that they were alienated from whatever the mainstream is and knew they had to look elsewhere. And often they're pretty bad at makeup. When you meet Swifties, when I meet Swifties, one, there are many more of them. Two, they're often people who didn't see themselves as needing that kind of community, or didn't know it existed, or didn't know it was for them, or didn't know how much they were missing by trying to live the lives that we were told to live, where everything is your boyfriend, your clique, your zip code, your high school, your family, your job. So because Swifties, there's so many, and so many Swifties are such normies otherwise, she's made that kind of community much bigger than it would otherwise be. And it's the only fandom I'm in where everybody's better at makeup than me. It's great. But does that answer your question? Okay, last one, because there were hands that were fluttering. Okay. Were you going to ask the same question or different questions? Can we try to make it really fast? No. What? Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Okay, it's up to Eve. You can ask me at the book signing table. My publisher would want me to remind you that I'll sign books and you can talk to me over there.
Hi. I have a quick question. So I'm a grad student. I've been seeing a lot of stuff around Taylor Swift in the academic space really exploding. And I just went to a conference in New Mexico, and everybody was telling me to read your book.
Thank you.
So I want
Was this a Swiftie conference?
It was a popular culture conference with the Swiftie Studies area.
Okay.
And shameless plug, I'm also getting ready to put out a call for papers for Taylor Swift. But my question really is, that being said, and kind of this explosion that's happening in academia, where do you see the field? Where do you see it going? Do you see it living in an interdisciplinary space? Do you see it living in English departments? Both of those, etc.
Oh, I love that as a final question. It's going to go wherever the interesting work is. There's a good book about Taylor's fashion, what she wears and how she looks, by Sarah Chappell, who lives in, I think, Vancouver. She's interesting there. She's interesting as an economic force. There's a lovely book called Swiftynomics by an economist from Kansas. I hope that more people write about her as a songwriter, as a musical figure. It's going to go wherever the interesting work is, and it's going to be in multiple disciplines if those disciplines support that work. That said, I would like to see more of us who work on Taylor and who work on pop stars generally respect and understand what is happening there as a distinct art form called songwriting that is as different from writing books of poetry as screenwriting is from writing novels. And I would like to see a little bit more music people and people who understand songwriters as songwriters write not only about Taylor, but about Beyonce and Lorde. Lorde's album was so good, about King Princess, and about the extremely obscure 80s, 90s songwriter that my next book is going to be about, a guy called Scott Miller, who passed away a few years ago. Any game theory fans here? Are you a game theory fan? Oh my God, really? We have to talk about game theory. And we're going to stop there. Thank you so much for your time. I'll be in the back.
Thank you so much, Professor Burt. I hope you all will stick around for some refreshments, friendship bracelets, and book signing. I'm going to whisk our speaker away to the back of the room, and you can find her there if you'd like to chat with her more. Thank you.